Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this first interview for IEEE Plasma Science. And since we just wrapped up the 2023 International Conference on Plasma Science, we thought it would be best to kick off this interview with Edl Schamiloglu, who is a distinguished professor in electrical and computer engineering at University of New Mexico, as well as the Associate Dean for Research and Innovation and Special Assistant to the Provost for Laboratory Innovations, or Laboratory Relations, excuse me. He's also the director of the Pulse Power, Beams, and Microwaves Laboratory and the founding director of the University of New Mexico's Directed Energy Center. I guess in his spare time, he also became a fellow of the IEEE, APS, and is a member of NPSS ADCOM. So glad to have you here. And,
glad to be here.
And I guess along with that list of accolades and professional titles and everything else, you were also the chair of this year's International Conference on Plasma Science in New Mexico that just ended a couple weeks ago in the end of May. And I guess since it's all over, since everything's pretty much done with, I guess my first question, this isn't your first time hosting a conference, but now that this particular one is over, what are your thoughts on how everything went?
I think the local organizing committee did a tremendous job putting this together. There were a lot of unknowns when we started organizing this. We first started organizing this, believe it or not, in 2017. And then, of course, we all experienced the massive disruption that COVID brought to bear on us. Last year's ICOPS, which was in Seattle, was hybrid. And so we're the first ICOPS to be back fully in person. And you could really tell the community was really, really happy to be back together. You can see that the community was yearning to get back. And so I think Santa Fe turns out to be a perfect location for that. It's a small town. Everything is there by the plaza. The conference was centered at the El Dorado Hotel, but we had some overflow sessions at the Hilton, and it's just right across the street, so everything is right there. We took advantage of some special venues. As an example, Monday evening, we had the Women in Engineering on the terrace of La Fonda Hotel, which was beautiful. So I think everything turned out very well. I think the community really, really enjoyed being there and really enjoyed the technical program that Sal Portillo put together. So yeah, we're very happy.
So what are your thoughts on 100% in-person conferences? Are we back to that, or is there still a place for the hybrid and the virtual conferences?
I'm not a big fan of hybrid or virtual conferences. Just as a point, back in 2020, Singapore was hosting ICOPS, and it was completely virtual, and it was held in Singapore local time. And I remember it was a Saturday night, like 5 minutes to 11 p.m. And I get a text from the conference chair saying, "Where are you? I don't see you. You're chairing a session next." And I said, "Holy cow, I didn't realize it." My wife runs upstairs, grabs a shirt, throws it downstairs. I quickly put the shirt on, and without skipping a beat, I welcomed everyone to the session and survived that episode. But clearly, it doesn't work very well, and there's nothing like face-to-face interaction, sidebar, side conversation. You just can't have that in a virtual or hybrid setting.
Sure. Especially, I would say, the feedback, we just had our group meeting here the other day, and the big discussion on our end was with our students, who I believe is as valuable as the in-person format is for people at our point in our careers. The impression I got was that the students were really excited, were very excited about the return to fully in-person. I think it's really valuable for them, and they were really excited about it.
An opportunity to mingle, to meet fellow students, and to network with those who are more senior in their careers. Yeah, you can't do this virtually.
So you mentioned the conference that was intended to be in Singapore, but ended up going virtual. Kind of running along the thread of one of these topics that was also brought up in the 50th anniversary panel session that you hosted at ICOPS this year is is ICOPS having a presence internationally and having international sites for conferences. And I was wondering, I'm kind of running on that thread. What are your thoughts on the upcoming the handing off the baton, and your thoughts on ICOPS in 2024 in Beijing?
Yeah, so ICOPS 2024 will be in Beijing. The chair will be Tao Xiao, who's a professor. And I think the conference will be successful. I think they'll have good participation, although I think the vast majority of the participants will be from Asia. I think it's just the reality of the geopolitical situation these days, I think makes it difficult to envision traveling there. And, you know, the ICOPS traditionally was a North America conference. In addition to the United States, we had conferences in Canada. And then back in, I'm looking at my notes here, the very, very first truly international ICOPS was in 2003 in Jeju, South Korea. And I was there, I traveled there. But again, North American participation and European participation was sort of depressed a little bit because of the fact that there was a SARS pandemic in Asia at the time. And I remember, like, it was very funny. Right before you step on the escalator, they had a pan with bleach. So you had to put your feet in the bleach and then get on the escalator. And by the time we got to the third day, everyone was jumping over the bleach and not sticking their feet in it. So, but that was the first foray. The second foray outside of North America was in Karlsruhe, Germany in 2008. In 2012, we went to Edinburgh, Scotland. In 2015, I helped Professor Lütfi Öksüz organize in Antalya, Turkey, which was a beautiful location. Although there were a lot of Americans who were concerned because ISIS was sort of beginning to be a thing in Syria, and they were concerned. There was pretty good U.S. attendance. And then we had Singapore, which unfortunately became virtual. And now we're looking for 2024 in Beijing and 2025 to be PPPS, which is combined ICOPS and Pulse Power in Berlin, Germany. So those. So
what are your thoughts on the first 2 consecutive years internationally? Is it you think it's going to be how do you think it's going to impact the plasma science community?
I think a lot of the American plasma scientists who don't go to Beijing will go out of their way to go to Berlin.
I can see that, yeah. Just a quick question, actually, and I didn't write this down in my questions that I wanted to ask you. The Beijing conference, is it going to be 100% in person, or will there be a hybrid element to that one? Do you know?
I don't know for sure. I'm pretty sure it'll be 100% in person, but
okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I know that there have been some conferences in Asia, like IVEC was supposed to be in Chengdu, and it was originally advertised as in-person only, but then they morphed into a hybrid model.
Okay. So now that ICOPS is done, what are your plans for the rest of the year? You got any big research projects planned, or what's happening in the other half of your professional life for the rest of 2023?
In my day job. Well, we're really excited about standing up the Directed Energy Center at the University of New Mexico. So my research in plasma science over the last 36 years has focused on intense beam driven vacuum electron devices, so high power microwave sources. And directed energy has 2 flavors in New Mexico. It's high power microwaves and lasers, directed energy lasers. So I have a colleague in one of our centers who's a laser expert, and he and I have been plotting to build up this center. We fortunately worked very closely with our congressional delegation, and we were able to get congressional funds to stand this up. So we're very excited about that. I think, that will sort of be something that I hope will make a deep mark and will keep going long after I'm retired.
Excellent. So I was looking through your personal pages, and a lot of your research areas, as you just mentioned, are very familiar to the ICOPS and plasma science community: high energy density science, pulse power science, technology, plasma physics and diagnostics, physics and technology of charged particle beam generation and propagation, high power microwave sources. But the very last research area that I noticed on your website, which I'd be kind of curious to hear more about, just because it definitely falls outside the ICOPS domain, is neurosystems engineering. I was kind of curious if you could give us a quick
Sure.
idea of what that's all about.
Sure. So there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Gerald Jonas, and he used to be the director of pulse power sciences at Sandia Labs in the 1980s, 70s and 80s. And then President Reagan had tapped him to be the first chief scientist for Star Wars, for SDI. So Jerry then spent a couple of years in Washington working at the White House. And then he left, became a vice president at Titan in San Diego. And then finally, he returned to New Mexico. And at Sandia Labs, he had a really nice position called, he was the director of advanced concepts. So basically, he didn't have to hustle money. They gave him some money, and he was just there like a think tank to come up with ideas. And it turns out that his brother is a neurosurgeon, and Jerry got very interested in the brain and how you can affect the brain to improve well-being. And he came to me and my colleague, Professor Abdullah at the time, and said, he wants to pioneer this new field called neurosystems engineering, where you bring a systems point of view, but for addressing problems associated with the brain. So, for example, one example he was interested in is using electrical stimulation to enhance creativity in the brain, using electrical stimulation to improve sleep, giving the military an extra edge in performance by using brain stimulation. So we actually had a course we put together that we ran several times, and it used to be in iTunes U on Apple, but I don't think it's there anymore. I recently went to look for it, but that's what neurosystems engineering is all about. How can you use electrical stimulation of the brain to improve human well-being and creativity and learning and all that?
So is it focused mainly on the electrical stimulation, or is there an electrical sensing or like a feedback from the brain that you work on as well?
It's both. It's both.
Okay.
And it turns out that Jerry has a patent on this, but if you stimulate the brain at the frequency of brainwave activity during sleep, you can entrain the brain and get it to get the person to go to sleep. So this gives you a non-pharmaceutical way of improving sleep.
Something I'm sure you could have used in the weeks leading up to ICOPS.
That would have been useful.
So we're kind of wrapping up. We're getting up around 15-minute mark, where we want to try to wrap up the interview. But I do have one last question for you that of course anyone who attended ICOPS this year is going to be dying to know. So the last question I have for you is that I was asked this a dozen times while I was in New Mexico. And how do you answer the question, green, red, or Christmas?
Uh, it's actually specifically depends on what you're eating. So
Okay.
that's why there are some things I would only put green chili on. There would be some things I would only put red chili on. And then Christmas is the combination of the two. There are some things like huevos rancheros for breakfast, definitely Christmas. But some other things, Pascual's has this breakfast called huevos machulenos, which eggs and then fried bananas and parsley. And for that, I only put green chili mixed with tomatillo sauce.
Excellent. That sounds delicious. The eggs and bananas thing sounds like an interesting combination.
Next time you come, we should go to Pascual's together.
I would enjoy that. Well, thank you very much for talking with us for a little while, and definitely look forward to getting this up on the YouTube channel to share with the rest of the ICOPS community. And thank you very much. And
sounds
wish you
great.
the best for the rest.
Thank you for doing this.
No problem. I enjoyed it. If every interview is as interesting as this one is, I'm going to enjoy doing a lot more of them. So
Great.
thank you very much for your time.
Great. Take care.
Good seeing you, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.